atomic war with the U.S. The question is why the U.S. government should nail its colors so firmly to the mast of this purported Iranian assassination plot. On two other occasions, the U.S. made passionate commitments at the UN to concocted evidence, and he cites this. And this is important because there's a track record of lying and misrepresentation by high-level American officials presenting concocted evidence to justify American military action. The first of these, cited by Coburn and by others, a very high-level one, was the presentation at the United Nations by Secretary of State Colin Powell in February of 2003. This is during the George W. Bush administration. And during that presentation, Colin Powell presented his infamous dossier of bogus evidence, entirely phony evidence, that Iraq had a huge arsenal of weapons of mass destruction. And this was cited by the U.S. To help justify the invasion a few weeks later and bombing and occupation of Iran by American troops. The second, cited by Coburn, is the allegation by Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and U.S. Ambassador to the UN Susan Rice in February of this year that Muammar Gaddafi of Libya was committing crimes against humanity up to and including genocide against his own people, charges that have been decisively refuted by Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch. And Alexander Coburn goes on to stress again that Iran does not want war with the U.S., but asks rhetorically, how far will the U.S. go in its response, led as it is by a weak president, always glancing fearfully over his shoulder at the neocons and the war party. Another person who's commented on this is Gareth Porter, a very well-informed reporter for the Inter-Press Service. And he writes, officials of the Barack Obama administration have aggressively leaked information supposedly based on classified intelligence in recent days to bolster its allegation that two higher-ranking officials from Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps were involved in a plot to assassinate Saudi Ambassador Adel al-Jubeir in Washington, D.C. The media stories generated by the leaks help divert press attention from the fact that there is no verifiable evidence of any official Iranian involvement in the alleged assassination plan, contrary to the broad claim being made by the Obama administration. But the information about the Iranian officials leaked to NBC News, The Washington Post, and Reuters was unambiguously false and misleading. Now, very little of this has been reported and highlighted in the American media. Again, there's far more skepticism of this and far more reality about all this in the media outside the U.S. than there is here in this country, which is a media that does more to mislead and misinform the American public than perhaps the media of any other country. And that's why it's very important and valuable to check sources of news other than those from the mainstream media. In the British daily newspaper The Independent, another writer, Patrick Coburn, also deals with this plot and these claims made by the Obama administration. And he writes, under an article headlined, "Bizarre Plot Goes Against All That Is Known of Iran's Intelligence Service," Patrick Coburn in The Independent writes, "The claim that Iran employed a used car salesman with a conviction for check fraud to hire Mexican gangsters to assassinate the Saudi ambassador in Washington goes against all that is known of Iran's highly sophisticated intelligence service. The confident announcement of this bizarre plot by the U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder sounds alarmingly similar to Secretary of State Colin Powell's notorious claim before the United Nations in 2003 that the U.S. possessed irrefutable evidence that Saddam Hussein was developing weapons of mass destruction. The beneficiaries from such a plot are evident. there will be those on the neocon right and extreme supporters of Israel who have long been pressing for a war with Iran. And that's the crucial point here. First of all, the record of American officials lying about foreign countries to press, prod, and encourage the American public to support war and military campaigns against others is a well-entrenched one in American history. I've talked about this in other podcasts in the past, and perhaps the high point of all of this was by President Franklin Roosevelt in 1940 and 1941, in which over and over, in spectacularly exaggerated words, the president claimed that Germany represented a mortal threat to the United States, and that Germany was trying to take over the whole world and was plotting to take over the United States. And a high point of that was Franklin Roosevelt's claim that Hitler was trying to take over the whole world, abolish all the religions of the world, including Christianity, Islam, and so forth, and substitute a so-called Nazi religion. Well, all of that was completely bogus and spurious. But if there's any progress that can be pointed out in the years since then, is that the American public is much more skeptical than it was in 1941 because of the years of disappointment and of obvious misrepresentation by American presidents in the last 20 years and even the last few years. And here we go to really the main point. The country that above all, the only country that has an interest in war against Iran is Israel, because Israel regards Iran as fundamentally dangerous to its interests. Around the world, government after government realizes that the only beneficiary of a war against Iran would be Israel. The rest of the world understands, and most Americans understand, I think, or should understand, that war with Iran would be disastrous, catastrophic. And that's why there is such tremendous opposition to it, and why also the media, especially here in the United States, is so eager to try to create incidents or create justifications for a war against Iran. Jim Loeb, writing for the Independent Press Service, comments, key neoconservatives and other right-wing hawks who championed the 2003 U.S. invasion of Iraq are calling for military strikes against Iran in retaliation for its purported murder-for-hire plot against the Saudi Arabian ambassador here. Leading the charge is the Foreign Policy Initiative, the ideological successor to the Project for the New American Century, which played a critical role in mobilizing support for regime change in Iraq in the late 1990s and subsequently spearheaded the public campaign to invade the country after the 9/11 attacks. The beneficiaries of war against Iran, again, primarily, overwhelmingly would be Israel, and that's the main beneficiaries of this fantastic claims of against a new plot. But to go back to the recent presidential, the current presidential campaign and the recent debate, it's worth emphasizing how quick Republican Party leaders have been to cite this supposed plot to justify more military spending and more support, if that's even possible, for Israel, and to justify new actions against Iran. Well, that concludes this broadcast of the Mark Rober Report. I hope you'll join me the next time.